Hey everyone, my name is Britt and welcome back to another vlog. So I thought that for my April wrap up I would do another one of those day in my life slash wrap ups again. So basically I'm just going to film my entire day, what I'm doing, what I'm reading, and throughout the day I will talk about the books that I read in April. You guys really seem to enjoy the last time I did this, so I think I'm just going to stick to this because I like filming vlogs a lot more than really long sit down videos, and I think this will be a bit more fun to talk about the books that I read in April. So first of all, let's talk about some stats. So in April I read 11 books, 7 of them were physical books and 4 of them were audiobooks. In total, I read 1,847 physical pages and I listened to 44 hours worth of audiobook. My average rating was a 4.34, which is so freaking high. This was a very great reading month. And let's take a look at the age categories. I'm really sorry if you can hear, like, I don't know what they're doing. And I live above, like, car garages and stuff, and they're always working and it's really annoying. So I hope you can't hear that. But let's take a look. I read 1 middle grade, 2 young adult and 8 adult books. By the way, from now on in all my videos I'm trying to do like timestamps so you can see exactly in which part of the video I talk about what. So if you want to skip something or just look at the books I read or just look at the vlog footage, you can find all the timestamps down below in the description. So let's talk about the first 2 books that I read in April. The first one is The Ship of Shadows by Maria Kuzniar. This is the only middle grade book I read in April, but it was such a great one. I'm so happy I read it. This book is about a little girl named Aleja, and she lives in Sevilla. And she's always wondering what it's like exploring the world, and she's reading about that in books, but she's always being told that girls can't really be explorers. However, one day a ship docks in the harbors at Sevilla, and it is the Ship of Shadows, which is a pirate ship with a crew of pirates whom are all women. Because of circumstances, Maria finds herself on the Ship of Shadows and she's going to sail with this badass crew on this ship, and it's a magical ship. They're going on this quest to find something, and I don't want to tell you anything more or I will spoil it, but this was such a brilliant book. I absolutely loved it. I gave it 4.75 out of 5 stars, and I think that this is such an amazing story, especially for young children. It's a middle grade story for young girls reading that they can be explorers, and you know that reading about pirate stories where the pirates are actually women instead of men, because most of the time when you read about pirates they're men, but sometimes girls really like to read about cool female pirates going on adventures and discovering the world. I absolutely loved it. I can't wait for book 2. It was just so magical, and I love the little, you know, magical elements in this book. So if you're looking for a new middle grade, oh my god, why is there so much noise? So if you're looking for just a super fun and magical middle grade story, I highly recommend this one. Also the cover is so amazing. And then the next book I read was Edgar Allan Poe Complete Poetry. I had never read anything by Edgar Allan Poe before, and I hardly read poetry. How is there so much noise? Now they're working on the front of my house. Okay, I'm going to close my door. Okay, so all of Edgar Allan Poe's poetry, and the thing is, I'm not really a poetry reader, and especially not the like old poetry, because I was struggling a little bit whilst reading this book because some of the words were very like old English and sometimes I don't really understand it properly, and that's also a reason why I didn't rate this book. Like I kind of enjoyed some of the poems, but some of them are really long and I kind of lost interest or like lost concentration, so I decided not to rate this because I just don't know too much about it, and I just don't think I could really experience the proper feelings that you can get whilst reading these poems, simply because I sometimes just didn't understand them properly and I'm just not the biggest poetry reader. So I decided not to rate this book, but I did enjoy just trying out something new and just reading something outside of my comfort zone, because this is definitely outside of my comfort zone. If I do read poetry, I'm much more interested in reading like modern poetry because I just understand better. So yeah, I'm happy I finally read it because I just never read anything by Edgar Allan Poe before, and some of his poems were quite dark and, you know, a bit eerie, which I enjoyed, but as I said, I've decided not to rate it. But yeah, if you have any like recommendations for modern poetry that I might enjoy, let me know in the comments, because I do really want to read more books outside of my comfort zone. So those were the first 2 books I read in April. I'm just going to go back to work now. I'm going to pack some orders, and hopefully if it stops raining soon, I'm going to do some grocery shopping. So I will see you in a bit with the next 2 books. All the orders are packed. I also took some Instagram photos and it is only 10, which is amazing. So talking about the next 2 books, I'm going to be talking about these very briefly, because one of them is actually for a different video and one of them was my Patreon book club pick. So I already made like a bigger vlog on my Patreon page talking about that book. But the first of all is my reread of Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is all about, like, if you don't know this book, how? But this is all about Daisy Jones, and Daisy Jones is this 70s rock chick. She becomes part of the Six, which is a band, and this book takes place in the 70s, and this is basically a story about how Daisy Jones and the Six, this band, fell apart. It's written in this interview format. It's like an interview with the band, and they're talking about, you know, how it happened, why it happened, how their lives differed, and what happened to all of them. And it is one of my favorite books. I reread it for a video. That video will probably take some more time, but I still loved it. And then the next book I read was The Poppy Wall by R.F. Kuang. This was my pick for my Patreon book club. I have a bi-monthly Patreon book club in which we all read a book together, and I make a reading vlog about it and we can discuss it, and we also talk about it in our Discord. And The Poppy Wall is an adult fantasy book, and The Poppy Wall takes place in ancient China, but there's like magic and fantasy elements added to this book. It is really difficult to explain because so much happens in this book, but in short, it is about an orphan girl named Ren, and she trains herself in secret to try to get accepted to Synagogue Academy. This is a really dark fantasy tale. There are a lot of different characters, there's a lot happening, and I was constantly just on edge, like, oh my god, what's going to happen? It was really shocking at times, so definitely read trigger warnings at first, but it was such a good and like whole fantasy book. So much happened, there was so much action. I really felt for the characters, and I'm just so happy I finally read this book. I'm a bit scared and intimidated to read the next few books in this series, but I will read them. Okay, right now let's see what else I have to do on my to-do list. I always make a to-do list in my planner. I still have to get an invoice from something, create like this little ad break thing on Instagram stories. So if I have an ad on my Instagram stories, I would like to put a story before that saying like, oh, an ad break is coming, just to make sure that my followers are aware that the next story is going to be an ad. I just want to make a nice graphic for that. And I need to edit a Patreon day in my life video that I filmed a few days ago. I filmed just a day in my life because I sometimes do extra videos on my Patreon page. And I really want to do groceries, and I think I might do that in a bit because it is not raining anymore. Okay, just got back from doing groceries, but I have to go back to a different grocery store in a bit, because I always do like my just weekly groceries at this one store that's really cheap, but they don't have like a lot of different things. So if I want something very specific, they sometimes don't have it. So I thought I would just show you everything that I got. First of all, a bunch of COVID tests, because you can finally get them for really cheap, and they're approved and stuff by the, you know, health thing in the Netherlands, and they're like 75% accurate, so better safe than sorry. So I can just do them whenever I'm seeing friends. Some breadcrumbs, some bananas, some iceberg lettuce if I want to make a salad. These are on sale, which are like veggie things, so a spinach and cheese thingy, and some falafel because I still have some pita bread left, so I'm going to make lovely pita bread falafel. Some of these to do the dishes, some tofu, some cherry tomatoes, my fave, some garlic, some cheese, some salsa for nacho chips because I still had those left, some Italian like seasoning or herbs that I always put in, like, you know, tomato sauce, some agave syrup because I'm running out of my honey, and I thought I would try agave syrup for a change, and then some hummus with sun-dried tomatoes, some sesame seeds, a sweet potato, some lemons, and lastly, my fave, some avocados. This is the first time I've done a grocery haul, and this is really funny. But now I'm just going to put this away, freshen up a bit, and then go to the other grocery store. So I'll see you again once I'm back from the second one. Okay, and we're back from the second grocery trip. Second haul. Some whole grain wraps, some flatbread, because I saw this really cool thing that people made like a pizza from this flatbread. So basically you just put pizza toppings on it and then you put it in the oven, which is amazing because I don't like making pizza dough and this is super easy, so that's cool. Some croutons for in my salad. I love croutons, like I can easily make them myself, but it's much easier to just buy them. Some hoisin sauce, because I keep seeing fun recipes and you need hoisin sauce for that. So this one. Some fried onions if I want to put it on like noodles or something. Some garlic spread, that's good on everything. Some vegetables for like frying. Some little carrots. Some rice vinegar. Again, kept seeing lovely recipes with rice vinegar and I didn't have it. And these are like these things. Same as with sesame oil. These things you just buy once and then you can use it forever. So I got some sesame oil and some rice vinegar. And if I'm feeling really lazy and I don't want to cook, I bought a spinach lasagna. Yes, this is not very good and it was definitely an impulse buy, but I haven't had lasagna in months, so I might make this tonight. I got some oat milk. This is really heavy. Some cacao powder because I want to make like a cacao mug cake. Some coconut milk because I plan on making some lentil dal again very soon. And then lastly, a cucumber. This was a lot of groceries and now I'm really tired, but at least this is enough for like the upcoming week and hopefully more, because I still have lots like in my cabinets and stuff, so I hope I can just make lots of dinners. I'm not the best at prepping and planning for meals, but I'm just going to put everything away and then we're going to talk about the next two books. Why am I like this? I'm sitting back at my desk and what do I see? These Dutch orders that I had to ship out. And I thought if I'm going grocery shopping, I can immediately put them in the mail box thing, and I forgot. So now I have to go back again. But I'm going to do that in the afternoon. It's like 12. But let's first talk about the next two books. The next one I read was The Stationery Shop of Tehran by Marianne Karmali. Let me just say, this book was amazing. This was so good. I listened to this book on audiobook, and this book takes place in Iran. It follows a girl named Roya who works in a stationery shop, and that shop is owned by Mr. Fakhri. And Mr. Fakhri introduces Roya to the very handsome Bahman. They fall in love, they want to get married, but then one day Bahman suddenly is gone and Roya is left behind. She doesn't know where he is, she can't contact him, so you know, life goes on after that. Later on in her life, Roya moves to America, she remarries, she goes to college there, but then suddenly years and years later she finally has the opportunity to talk to Bahman again because of fate. So this is all about how she's looking for answers, asking why he left, how he, like what he did the rest of his life. So this is very much focused on these characters and everything that they're going through. This truly is a love story. It was so beautiful, so sad, so just like I felt for these characters. I felt like I was right there with them. What was also very interesting was that this takes place in like the 1950s in Iran as well as just present day, and it was very interesting reading about the culture and the political environment back then compared to now, and just learning more about 1950s Iran, because the political climate back then is just very different to something that I'm used to. So overall I just absolutely loved this book. It was so beautiful and just so sad and just amazing. So I highly recommend this book. Okay, let me immediately talk about two other books, namely two Titanic books. I actually made a vlog all about reading Titanic books for a week, and if you haven't seen that yet, you can check it out there. But the first one, I will grab it. It's more fun to see these in real life. Okay, so it's this one. This is all about the film. This is a very old one, and I believe this one is actually from like 1997 or 1998, something around that time when it was just released. And yes, 1998, which is really old. But the thing is, I was absolutely obsessed. Like, I'm still absolutely obsessed with this film. I've watched it so many times, and I think my cousin from England, she gave this book to me when I was around like 9, 10, I think. And this is from Britain, actually, still in pounds and stuff. But this is all about the film, and it's like behind the scenes stories and photos, and it's completely falling apart. Look, all the pages. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Look, I have had this book for like over 15 years already, and I always look through all of the photos because the photos are so beautiful, but I never properly read everything. So I decided to finally read this entire book and like actually read all the little pieces of information, and I don't know why I never did it before. It was so interesting. I just absolutely love this. Like, Of course I'm gonna rate this 5 out of 5 stars, but it's not really a book that you can properly rate, I think. But yeah, this was so incredibly interesting, just reading from James Cameron's like his ideas, as well as more of the cast and crew. It was amazing. I loved it. So I finally read this, but then I also decided to finally read this entire book. This is a very big coffee table book, and I got this from my grandfather. Again, when I was like 9, 10, 11, something like that, he had this in his library. And when I visited him back then, he knew that I really loved this, and I was just looking through the book, and he said that I could have it. But again, this is all like non-fiction. So this is full of just paintings and just so much information about the actual event that happened. And again, this is one of those coffee table books that you just sometimes read a bit here and there, but I decided to read this entire book and like actually read every little thing. And fun thing, it only took me 2 days. The thing is, there are also so many photos in here and like paintings, so I think that like 50% of the book is text and the rest is just photos and stuff. But again, why had I never read that book? It was so full of information, so many facts that I didn't know yet. And this one as well, absolutely loved it. So I gave it 5 out of 5 stars as well. Okay, 4 more books to talk about. So first, I'm going to edit my day in the life for my Patreon page. And then I will see you after that with the next 2 books. Oh, and first I'm going to get some lunch as well, because it's like 12:15 now. Okay, it's sometime later. I'm sorry if you can see a glare, but my contact lenses just weren't comfortable anymore, so I took them out. But the next 2 books that I read are Shadow and Bone, because I wanted to do this reading challenge of reading the entire Shadow and Bone trilogy in a week, because of course the TV show was released a few weeks ago. But I failed and I only read 1 book, Shadow and Bone, and I actually had read that one before years and years ago, but I forgot everything about it. But I'm really glad that I still managed to reread the first one, because it was just fun to get back into the Grisha world. Even though I've never completely finished the Shadow and Bone series, I've only ever read the first book, but I forgot just everything about it. So I'm glad I read it before the first season was released. So if you don't know Shadow and Bone, it's a YA fantasy series that takes place in this fantasy world. Rovka is one of the like places there, and you follow Alina, and in Rovka you have this shadow fold, which is basically this black fold that divides the land, and the shadow fold has to be destroyed so there can be peace again. And Alina suddenly finds out that she has like magical powers, and she can be the one to destroy the fold. And of course there's some love, some romance. It's just quite a typical YA fantasy story, but I actually quite enjoy those. It wasn't my favorite. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. I think that's the same rating as I gave it a few years ago when I read it for the first time. I do enjoy, for example, Six of Crows a lot more, but it was just very fun reading Shadow and Bone again. And I have the other 2 books, so I'm going to like finish the entire series one day, but it was not that day. And then the next book I read was Titanic, the most complete story ever told. This is a non-fiction book written by a Titanic fan, and he just wanted to create this book with all of the little facts, exactly how everything happened in 1912, and he wrote it. It was actually a really interesting audiobook. It was an audiobook, and there was so much information in there, and you could really feel the author's passion for Titanic and everything that happened. There were like music or like sound effects as well. You could sometimes hear music, and I really enjoyed that audiobook. There were definitely some new things that I'd never heard of before, but there were also lots of facts that you do hear all the time, you know? But there were definitely some extra things in there, and it was interesting reading about the passengers as well. He wrote a lot about certain passengers that were on board. I also read that for my Titanic reading vlog, and I gave that one 4 out of 5 stars. If you like Titanic, take a look at that audiobook. You can listen to it on script. I actually have a like a link in the description so you can try out Script. I believe it's for 2 months for free, and you can just cancel anytime. And if you click that link and, you know, sign up for Script, I also get a free month. So it's like a win-win, and it always makes me so happy if people sign up using that link. So if you want to try out Script, it's completely free. This is not sponsored. I think it's just a great audiobook service and an ebook service as well. Check out the link in my description. Okay, those are the next 2 books, and I have 2 more books left, and then we have talked about 11 books, which is crazy. But right now I've finished editing the day in my life for my Patreon, and I've already uploaded it and everything, so I'm really happy. And now I'm just going to start editing this vlog already so I can upload it in 2 days on Wednesday, because today it is Monday. And then once I've edited that a bit, I'm going to post the 2 orders that I've yet to post. Since I forgot them, I still have to do it now. Okay, I finished editing all of the talking parts from this vlog until now. Please don't mind this. I know you're going to keep looking at it now. I kept scratching at it, and now this pimple is not doing well. But I'm going to talk about the last 2 books that I read in April. Again, 2 more Titanic books. But also, if you don't like Titanic, you can definitely read these books. These are fiction books, but based on IDs and based on real events. So the first one is called I'm going to close my window because there are a lot of cars. Are you looking at my pimple? Because I know you are. The first one is called Unsinkable, written by Lotte van den Noord. This is a Dutch book, and it's been a long time since I've also read a Dutch book, so I'm happy I read this one. Everyone kept tagging me in it like, oh my god, Britt, this book is going to be released, you have to read it. And it was actually released on April 14th, which is the day that Titanic hit the iceberg in 1912. So this book is a fiction book. You follow fictional characters, but the interesting thing is that this book is based on one of the biggest conspiracy theories about Titanic, and I've never read anything about the conspiracy theories before. I kind of heard a bit here and there, but I just don't believe them. However, it was very interesting reading about this. However, in this book you follow a girl named Katarina Thompson, and she gets the opportunity to work on Titanic as like a maid, but then her brother is telling her, don't go on this ship, it is doomed, I feel something bad is going to happen, don't go. But of course she still goes on the ship together with her fiance, and of course things are happening. What was interesting about this book is that you follow these fictional characters, but of course you also see a lot of the real passengers on the ship. So think about Mr. Andrews, the Captain Smith, Molly Brown, John Jacob Astor. You see so many of the real passengers on this ship, and of course Bruce Ismay, the like builder of the ship. I definitely enjoyed this book. It was a very quick read, but I just wasn't really feeling some of the characters. I felt like some of them made quite stupid decisions at time, and I couldn't really understand why they did certain things. And like, of course things have to happen in the plot, you know, to make it a bit more thrilling and a bit more exciting, but I sometimes felt like how they got to those points was just through kind of dumb decisions of the characters, so they could be avoided, you know what I mean? But of course I completely understand that these things had to happen in order to get to the point that made the story more thrilling. What I did really enjoy about the story was just the whole setting, and how the writer was definitely describing a lot about what the ship looked like. Of course it is the most iconic ship there is, and I'm pretty sure we all know kind of the outside and the interior, what it looks like, and the writer was really trying to describe that very well. So that's something I definitely really enjoyed about this book, and it was definitely very emotional and a sad one. So I give this one 3.5 out of 5 stars. This was like my first Titanic fiction book I ever read, so that was very fun. And then the last book I read in April was The Girl Who Came Home, and this one is also a book about Titanic, but it is like based on real stories of survivors, but it is kind of mixing with fiction. This is about a girl from Ireland who goes on the ship as well with a lot of people from her town. I believe it was like 14 people. And it takes place in 1912 as well as in the 80s, I believe, and you follow the great-granddaughter of this survivor, and that great-granddaughter can get in contact with other survivors, and it was just a very, very beautiful book. I absolutely loved it, and I thought that it was so emotional because you follow this life of the people on the ship as well in 1912, as well as one of the survivors in the 80s, and how she was finally telling her story about what it was like on that ship. She was telling it to her great-granddaughter, and you know, as I said, her great-granddaughter got the opportunity through fate and like circumstances to get in contact with other survivors. It was just so beautiful, so sad, and I just absolutely loved it, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. And these are two of those books that you can definitely just read if you're not into Titanic, but you just want to read very emotional and beautiful stories. So these were all of the books that I read in April. 11 books. I'm still so surprised by how many books I read. I had such an amazing reading month. I really hope you like this wrap-up style again. I'm not going to end the vlog yet because it's only 5, so I'm still going to continue with this like daily vlog. I'm going to make some dinner, I'm going to be reading some tonight, and I just finished work for today, so I think I'm just going to get a little snack and watch some Friends.